Okay, so we've covered the RCN networking mode pretty well, but now we're going to cover the RCN 4G mode, or just 4G in general. There's two different ways that you can do this. Underneath RCN, the device is connected to the ARC3 Pro, and the ARC3 Pro is connected to the P100 Pro and the RTK. In the case, and this can all be operating without an internet connection, so no 4G in that if you don't have to. Every once in a while, though, you may have that, and that's when the logs can be transferred back to the main server. Otherwise, you may also have a 4G connection at all times when you're in the field. In this case, this just gives you internet, satellite maps, and other things at all times when you're out in the field and you're flying. And this is a good thing to have. Now, say you have the option where you go behind and fly behind hills and trees, or you're flying out further than a half mile or a mile, and you want to keep a connection with your aircraft at all times. In order to do that, you can put a SIM card in the P100 Pro. And what this does is this allows it to connect to the 4G network. And so when you send a command through the device to the Pro, or to the ARC3 Pro, it's going to go up to the cloud, and then it can come back down and into the P100 Pro. This enables you to have connection much further beyond visual line of sight. And it's a seamless switch between the RCN mode and the 4G system. You can also fly with just the 4G system, and in that case, all systems are in 4G. So there is no longer a connection to the device, or the ARC3 Pro in this case. Everything is connected to 4G. So the device is connected to 4G, the ARC3 Pro is connected to 4G, the XRTK could be connected to 4G, and the P100 Pro is connected to 4G. In that case, all of these devices connect through the internet up to the cloud, and they talk back to each other through that. Now that can have a lag to it, and that's why the RCN mode with 4G is a much better solution for in-field flights. The RCN is much more responsive, it's quicker. Every time you click the button, it's a lot faster. But if you are in a scenario where you're behind trees or you're really far out, the 4G enables you to do things that you wouldn't typically be able to do with just one remote controller that can't always have a connection with a heavy crop canopy. So in the case that you got a SIM card from us, from a different provider that requires an APN to log in, I'll go ahead and show that process. You go ahead and insert your new SIM card and click it into the ARC3 Pro. Then you go ahead and start the device. We're going to go to our devices, and then we're going to click the triple dots and click the APN configuration. Then we're going to click on our remote controller and make sure that we're connected to the Wi-Fi. It's going to bring up this dialog, and again, make sure that you're connected to your Wi-Fi, to the ARC3 Pro. And then you're going to want to put in IoT, the APN settings. In this case, it's iot.aer.net. Click Submit, and then you're configured. That's all you have to do on the app side. Now, your device, when it's finally online, will go ahead and turn green when it's connected to the internet and connected to the server. This means that you've properly set your APN settings. So in the case that we need to put our drone on 4G, either to update it, or we just want to put a SIM card in the drone so that we can go ahead and use that out in the field for long range distances, we have to go ahead and do some disassembly first to get to the SIM card slot. To do so, you're going to go ahead and take the front cover off and set that aside. Next, we have to remove this front bracket, which means we're going to have to take these screws off and drop this part down. Go ahead and remove it by getting the right torque head, and unscrew, and don't lose these screws, put them someplace safe. Once those screws have been removed, you can go ahead and wiggle this part off and let it hang down gently. In order to get into the drawer, you may need to pick apart this zip tie or cut it off. Go ahead and remove the zip tie so you can separate the wires. Once those wires are separated out, you can go ahead and see the door here where the SIM card is. That takes a very tiny hex head, so let's go ahead and get that tool. It's best to have a magnetic screwdriver when you do this, or a tray, so that you don't lose any of these screws. They're very, very small. Now you're going to want to pry this door open, either with a pair of tweezers or some flat metal device. Just wiggle it open. And you can set this off to the side. It's possible you may have a SIM card already left in here from the Chinese factory. You may need to remove it. In order to do so, go ahead and click in with the rear end of your tweezers gently, and go ahead and grab that SIM card and remove it. Okay, when you have your card ready, go ahead and, with the metal facing down, put it into card slot number 2. And again, using the back end of your tweezers, push that card in until it clicks gently. You'll then need to replace the door and push that in gently until it fits. And then do make sure to seal this door up when you're done so that you can keep the dust, dirt, water, and grime out of the autopilot. Otherwise, you could risk damaging that autopilot, which would eventually could cause personal property damage or personal harm. Finally, make sure to put your cables back up in here again and keep those in nice and tight and zip tie those. And then you'll need to gently work your radar back in place and insert the screws. Now that we have the radar back on, we can go ahead and we have to enable a mode on our autopilot, so we need to remove these 2 screws so we can pry this up. And see that small space there. Now it's a little bit easier to see the autopilot. Okay, once the drone is started and powered on, you can go ahead and you'll have to use a pick to reach back there, but you'll go back to where the button is here and you'll double press it. So you'll push once, off, push once, off, and you'll see the lights flash and change, which means you've put it into Wi-Fi mode. Make sure to connect not to your ARC3 Pro, but now connect to your drone. You can find it right here. The password is the same, 20070401, and then hit connect. Once you've connected to that, we need to set the APN for this aircraft. So we go to Device, the triple dots, the APN configuration, the drone, and then we say we're Wi-Fi connected, and then we enter in our APN. Once we've typed that in, we click Submit, and the drone's been configured. So now we have our APN set for our SIM card. We're going to go ahead and switch this back to 4G and RCN mode. To do that, we're going to have to take our pick again with the aircraft on, go all the way back, push the button down 1, 1000, 2, 1000, 3, 1000, 4, 1000, 5, 1006, off, 1, 1000, 2, 1000, 3, 1000, 4, 1000, 5, 1006, 1000, And then you'll see the lights start changing again, and now it's switched back to 4G/RCN mode. Now we need to go ahead and put this cable back in place, so you got to push it back. And then take your screws and screw that mount plate back down. In order to reset the mode of the aircraft, you may have to remove the front panel. And even with the power off, there still is power. You can see the lights on to the autopilot. You could either wait 2 minutes for that to die because of the UPC underneath that's giving power to this unit, or you can take this plug out, number 101, and then unplug that. And that'll automatically kill the lights to the autopilot, resetting it. You can go ahead and plug this back in, tuck it back into its spot, and put the hood back on, and your aircraft should be reset, and you can give it a full reboot. Now just put your hood back on to complete. So to demonstrate this, I've moved my aircraft and my remote outside so I get better 4G connection. Steel building isn't very good to keep that very strong, so I've moved them out. And I've put my phone in 4G. And what you'll see here is I have the ability to switch to my drone and see the drone and the remote here on my screen. And they're both on there. I'm not using Wi-Fi. I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi to my ARC3 Pro. I'm actually only connected to a 4G network, which is routing back to the drone and to the remote controller, because they both have SIM cards in them, and my phone does too. So this is full 4G connection right now. If I want though, I can go ahead and check that connection to see what it looks like. I can see that I'm in LTE. I can check my signal quality and other things in there. I can also check on my remote and see its connection status. It says I have a good network right here. I can look at my quality of connection. You can see mobile data and how much that's taking up. Now, if I want to switch to my RCN, I can also just switch really quickly and turn on my Wi-Fi and my mobile data. And what this is going to do is it's going to connect me to my ARC3 Pro remote, and then my ARC3 Pro is going to connect first to the drone, and then you can see it's on LTE and it's switching back and forth between Wi-Fi and LTE, which means I'm connecting to my drone through the LTE network and through the RCN network. So if this drone gets farther away from my RCN or from my remote controller and it loses its connection, it's going to rely on that LTE when it's in flight, behind trees, over hills, maybe a mile away. But when it's coming back and it gets within range of that remote, it's actually going to pick that signal up and seamlessly switch back to the RCN network. So you're going to have really fast connection. When it's in 4G, you're not going to have as responsive connection. When it's in, because it's further away and it takes a little while to relay that communication, like maybe stop and hover and those types of buttons. But when it's in full-blown RCN mode, it's a lot faster, more responsive, because that connection's closer. But this gives you a good option for those areas where it's hard to reach and you want to keep connected. And it also gives you a solution for RTK as well. If you want to use an RTK network and use that on the drone, you can put a 4G chip in the drone and keep that connection there always on that drone.